Okay, everyone. Well, welcome to the WiggyWam Get Your Property Questions Answered webinar number 10. I am live currently in Delhi in India, believe it or not. It is coming up for about 11:30 at night. And you'll notice a very sort of different, more casual approach this week, as we're currently over in India visiting the in-laws, or the outlaws as I like to call them, over here in Delhi, which is a fantastic place. I've got to say, if you have never been to India before, I would strongly recommend it. It is a bit of a baptism of fire for the senses when you first get here. I have to say, when I first experienced India earlier this year, it was absolutely mind-blowing. I'd heard so much about it from different people. And when you eventually get out here and you experience all of the noise and the energy and the people for the first time, it is absolutely incredible. So I think it's one of these places that doesn't tend to get on people's bucket lists very often, but I would definitely put it near the top of yours if you're thinking about an adventure holiday, somewhere to be in a place that's very, very different. This is, for me, more of a sort of spiritual journey, as well as obviously seeing family. It's nice to be visiting the temples and seeing how connected people are to God and religion and their spirituality over here as well, which is really quite exciting. So on Monday, we actually went to one of the local temples called for a gentleman called Guruji, who was here. Unfortunately, he's passed on now, but was here for quite some time and built a following. And he's got this incredible temple on the outskirts of Delhi, which we were lucky enough to experience on Monday. Spent some time there. Beautiful, peaceful energy. It's like a little slice of heaven in the otherwise hectic energy of Delhi. Absolutely loved being there. It was fantastic fun. And then at the weekend, we're going to see another temple, which involves a climb up a bit of a mountain. So I'm getting very excited about all of this, as you can probably see. So yeah, definitely a place I would recommend coming to and experiencing yourself. And yeah, it's one of those things that, as I say, when I first heard about Delhi, I didn't believe some of the stories. And then you get here, and one of my first experiences was being driven in a car from the airport to where we were staying, and you sort of jump in the car, and it's, you know, we drive on the left hand side over here, so it's all fairly similar to England. And I remember us driving out of the airport joining the traffic, and I'm looking at the road and I'm going, this is a 3-lane road and there's 6 lanes of traffic, and everybody's finding that last little inch of space to try and get their vehicle into, or their tuk-tuk or their motorbike or their push bike. And you just think, this is crazy. Like, everybody's literally millimeters away from one another, and they all seem to cope and coordinate, and there's traffic coming the opposite way down the one-way system, and nobody seems to be bothered about it whatsoever. And then you're driving along, all of a sudden you see the cars pulling in, you think, what's ahead, and there's a herd of cows in the middle of the road. And honestly, it is the most crazy but memorable, beautiful experience you could ever wish for. So definitely put India near the top of your list. Anyway, I'm getting a bit carried away. As I say, welcome to episode number 10 in the WiggyWam webinar series. I'm really excited that you guys keep joining us every week and sending in your questions. It's great to be able to take some of these questions and answer them. And I'm really pleased that we're dedicating the time to go through this every week and just get your questions answered and share some knowledge and contacts and experience with you guys to help you out in your journeys as much as possible. So let's crack on. We'll take question number 1 here that's coming from Jane. Hi there, Jane. Jane asks, would you recommend training to become a surveyor? And what's the process like to become qualified? Well, it's a great question, Jane. Nice and short and sweet. So I'll get straight into that. For me, Jane, it was quite an intense approach. So I trained to become a building surveyor. And in the surveying world, there are various different niches, if you like, of surveying that you can go into. And it depends what it is that you want to do. I chose building surveying because it seemed to make sense to me, right? It was just, learn about buildings. And I thought, well, I know a little bit about that, so I'll give that a try. So I tried building surveying as a route to go down. And for me, it was... I was never a great student, I'll be honest with you, at school. It was never really my thing, and I didn't really want to go to university, so I did my degree part-time, whilst I also worked full-time to try and maintain an income, and I didn't want to have student debt and all that sort of thing. So I did the whole part-time thing, and I was working as an estate agent at the time whilst I did my degree bit. But then I trained to become a building surveyor and project manager in a sort of junior undergraduate surveyor's role, and that involved me going into Birmingham City Centre to learn more about surveying and project management, in particular working on multi-million-pound commercial buildings and all that sort of thing, project managing those. And that was good. It was good experience. But what I realized going through it is I'd go home and I'd start learning all of this material because I'd heard that the final exam, which is where they kind of sort the wheat from the chaff, it's like an hour's final exam or interview, should I say, and it's with three sort of big surveyors at the top of their game, and they can ask you a question on anything that they like, right? So it kind of puts the fear of God into you. So I thought, well, I must learn an awful lot to get into this role. And so I was reading pages and pages of information, literally box files of information, books that I could get my hands on. And my learning process was really slow. And I'd read a page in a book and I'd sit back and go, what the hell did I just read? I can't remember any of this. And it got really frustrating. I'll tell you this little personal story, and there's a reason why in a minute. But I was driving home from work one day, and I came to this realization after listening to a Radio 4 article, and I don't know why, I just sort of flicked onto that radio station. They were talking about using nootropics, which is like cognitive enhancing drugs, right? And I thought, oh, maybe that could solve my problem, right? Because I was pretty desperate, I didn't know what to do. So I started searching on the internet about cognitive enhancing drugs. And I found out that there was this thing at the time, I think they've closed now, but it was called Dore Clinic, D-O-R-E. And I went and had some tests done, and they found that I was mildly dyslexic and I had ADHD. So I was like, oh, maybe this explains why I'm struggling to learn and I'm not very studious and all that sort of thing. And so the learning process became incredibly intense for me to understand what it was that a surveyor did and all the things they had to take into account when you were looking at buildings, and particularly with project management. And that process for me was one of the most intense of my life. I was actually, not only was I working full-time, trained to become a surveyor, it was an hour each way commute as long as I left at 6:30 in the morning to get into Birmingham city centre. And then I was leaving at like 7:30 at night to miss all the traffic. So it was a long day anyway. And then on the side, I was also renovating my home at the time, and I was doing a barn conversion. So at one point, I was literally living in a caravan on the side of a field with a cold hosepipe as a shower, and that's no exaggeration. I still have horrible memories to this day about cold showers and hosepipes, but all of that was, as I say, a very intense period, and trying to do all of this learning as well at the same time was really difficult. But I think the point of me telling you all of that was I put the work in, and I was one of the few, or in fact, there's only 1 in 3 surveyors will actually pass the final interview when they're trained to become a building surveyor. And I was very proud that I actually went through on the first round, which was a complete shock. If I'm honest, I still don't know how I did it. And today I remember, looking at the envelope when it came in the post and thinking, do I open this thing or not? Do I know if I passed or not? It was an intense process. But the point of me sharing all of that with you is the one thing that helped me more than anything was having practical hands-on experience of property rather than just reading stuff in a textbook and not knowing what it was all about. I remember reading as an estate agent, I read in this book, we were studying about the rise and fall method in surveying, and I was like, what the heck is the rise and fall method in surveying? I had no clue about this, right? And so I started to ask some of the surveyors in our practice that I thought are going to know, right? Because they've been surveyors for years. Not a clue. Nobody had a clue. And you start looking, and this was kind of like almost pre-internet days when I was first studying. And eventually, it became clear after looking through several books. It was all about how you set out sites if you're doing what do they call it now? Not geometric surveying, but you know what I mean. When you're setting out a site for a building or whatever, and you're measuring the ground and the undulations in the ground, all that sort of thing. It was to do with that, and I thought, okay, great. Well, that was an old method of doing it, and now everything's done by laser and theodolite and all that sort of thing as well. So the point of me sharing all of that with you, Jane, is to sort of suggest if you want to become a surveyor, I'd wholeheartedly encourage you to reach out and go for it. Understand it's going to be a fairly intense process, or it might not be for you. You might be more intelligent than I am, and you'll breeze through it. I don't know, but that would be a process that I'd go through and get some hands-on experience wherever you can, whether that's renovating your own home or being involved with people who are doing the same, just so you can understand little details. And of course, as I say, there are very different nuances in surveying, marine surveying, and all that sort of thing as well, civil engineering, all different brands of surveying. So just try and get as much hands-on experience as you can, get your hands dirty, and hopefully it will give you the backup knowledge that you need, rather than just being purely out of a textbook, because that's definitely the way to learn, in my opinion. They say it's very much like, when you learn to drive, you only really learn to drive after you pass your test, and I think a lot of it could be said to be the same with things like surveying as well. So hope that answers your question, Jane. Thanks for sending that one in, and good luck. And if there's anything we can do to help, obviously just let us know. But yeah, good luck with that. Okay, moving on. Question number 2 coming in here from Jeffrey. Quite a long one here, so I'll read it out. Jeffrey says, I'm looking to put a 2-bed bungalow up for sale. I chatted briefly with a local estate agent on social media who said my property had limited appeal in that it would only be of interest to people looking to downsize. He went on to say that only a local agent would know how to market it to reach its maximum value. Although my bungalow is small, it's on a good-sized plot with plenty of scope for development, with large front and back gardens and side area. It does require updating, but would be a good project for someone, I think, to convert into a larger family home. I don't want to go against expert agents' advice, but I want to maximize exposure for my property. I was thinking if I should use a national estate agent rather than local to attract out-of-town buyers. If I do go for a national agency, would it matter as much if they were online only? I've read Trustpilot reviews for many of them, such as Purple Bricks, and so would avoid those. I've also been told in a forum about Keller Williams and EXP or EXT, but I have never heard of them, so I'm unsure. Also, if I use this agency type, will I have to do all the viewings myself? I was not really happy to do this. Any advice would be appreciated. Okay, great question there. Thank you, Jeffrey. Look, Jeffrey, I think there's a couple of things going on for you there with that property. And, it's one thing getting a little bit of advice through social media, for example, and that may well be good advice. But what I would do if I was in your position is I would invite several agents to come down and have a look at the property. If this is something that's got potential for further development, i.e. extension, or possibly pulling it down and starting again. You could pull it down and maybe put some flats up there or some townhouses, depending upon obviously the size of the plot and access and all that sort of thing, and utilities. Then it would be an exercise that I would do where I would invite a number of estate agents down and ask them, to give you an opinion about what you should do with the property and what it's worth. But I wouldn't necessarily lead the discussion. I'd let them lead it for you, if that makes sense. So any good estate agent who's coming to the property will be looking at what we call higher and better use with that property. Okay, so if they think, we could find a couple that are downsizing from a massive property and it's the only bungalow in that area and it's right for renovation and they know they'll pay a premium for it, then that's the agent to go to. But if another agent comes along and says, you know what, we could pull this thing down, we could get 15 flats on the site, and the development value will far exceed, or the plot value, should I say, will far exceed the value of it as a bungalow, then that might be the road to go down, So it's all about getting that information from your local experts, who should be the local estate agents in the area, okay? It may also be worth checking with your local authority to see if the property is within any zones any land zones that are there for redevelopment and that sort of thing, because that again could impact the value of the property, or whether you're in a conservation area or something like that will restrict any kind of development or make it very difficult to get permission for redevelopment on the site. Okay, obviously this goes without saying that I'm not touching upon any what we call ground remediation issues that might be there on the site as well that you might need to think about. So personal experience I had of a previous site where there was a bungalow on that site, and it wasn't really a bungalow. It was more of a sort of garage below with a house above, because it was on a sloping site rather, and we had to go and get planning for redevelopment on that site, and that was in a conservation area. And even though the planners said, yeah, we want it pulled down, we want it got rid of because it's ugly, it's in an eyesore, it took forever to get planning permission on that site and to get it all approved. And just when we thought we were at the final hurdle, we got the planning sorry, we were that close to getting the planning, and on the 11th hour, the council turned around and they refused the planning, and I had to turn around to the council and say, right, I'm going to sue you. And they're like, oh, you can't sue us, you can't sue us. I said, well, I don't care, but I'm going to. And it was complete bluff, if I'm honest. But it was one of those processes I had to go down because they were being completely unreasonable, because they'd actually told us twice to go down for different routes for planning. And they said both times that they would approve them. And on the second time when they refused it, I knew that I was being messed about. So yeah, within, I think that was where were we? That was like 4 o'clock on the Thursday afternoon. I said, I'm going to sue you. And then on 4 o'clock on the Friday, we submitted revised plans where we dropped the brickwork on the garage by 2 courses, and they passed it. Okay, so I'm only sharing that story as a bit of an example as to some of the things you might have to go through if you're trying to battle to get planning on a site. But obviously you need to invite the local experts out to give you some guidance on what to do with this particular property, and then cross-reference it, which is why you're inviting 2 or 3 other people out there to look at it for you. And when you are inviting these agents to the property, you'll have the opportunity to interview them and ask them, will they do things like the viewings, the accompanied viewings? Will they, help and guide you as much as possible through this process? Or are they kind of going to point you in the right direction and leave you to your own devices? Okay, sometimes with a lot of these estate agents, particularly good ones, they'll come with their complete, shall we say, little black book, which includes contacts like architects or potential developers who might be interested, who will do a deal with you, maybe subject to planning, which could be another way to take all of the hassle off your back. The only problem is with a deal like that, you might be signing up to an option agreement for 5 years. And so you're restricted as to what you can do with the property for that time. So a couple of different options for you there, Jeffrey. Hope some of those help. But as I say, definitely get some advice from a number of different local experts. Get them to come and have a chat with you. And then you'll begin to get a much better, clearer idea of what you can do, rather than just talking to somebody on social media or listening to some guy in India on a webinar like this. All right. So wish you the best of luck with that, Jeffrey. Obviously, anything else we can do, let me know. More than happy to give you some more guidance on that as well. All right. So question number 3 has come in from Bradley. Hi there, Bradley. Bradley says, I'm after some advice on estate agents. Isn't the estate agent's job simply to take photos of the house and put it on Rightmove, etc., or do they have a bigger role? For example, would they understand what conforms to building regs, or are they expert enough to advise what documentation will be required for me once a buyer is found so I can sell the property? I'm thinking this would be the solicitor's job. The reason I'm asking is an estate agent I had out says the loft conversion we had done 15 years ago looks like it was done without planning permission. He said the staircase that goes into the converted loft from one of the bedrooms wouldn't meet building regs, and that it should be in a hall or landing. Then he said I should get a builder to take a look and fix the issues before putting it on the market. He pushed for me to use a certain builder, so I don't trust him and thinking he's taking backhanders and doesn't really have my best interests. Should I listen to this non-expert, or is he right about the loft conversion? All right, Bradley, that's a long question. Thanks for that. Again, quite a bit going on there for you, Bradley, and I want to just make sure I can address a couple of these points for you. First of all, unfortunately, in today's world, a lot of estate agency services have been commoditized, okay? And I will say that up front. A lot of them, unfortunately, have fallen into the trap of, we list the property on Rightmove, we sell it, and that's our job done. And really, that really undermines what an estate agent's true role should be, okay? And speaking very frankly, there's a lot of expertise within a lot of estate agents that gets overlooked, unfortunately, by commoditizing services in this way. And I think when you're looking at something like this, it sounds to me, without knowing all of the details, of course, here, Bradley, that it's highly likely the estate agent is right about what he's saying. Obviously, you've not sent me any photos or any plans of the stairs coming off the bedroom, but without separate fire compartmentation, it's unlikely, I would suggest, that would actually pass building regs. In fact, we had a property, it was one of the very first properties I bought in my portfolio, where they, the guy had done such a bad job of this property, I can't even believe it, but he created a bedroom that his son was sleeping in, and that was accessed off a loft ladder at the top of the stairs, with no guardrail or any kind of protection whatsoever. It's a complete death trap, basically. His son was climbing in and out of the loft, sleeping on a mattress in the loft as his own bedroom. But yeah, none of it was done to building regs. It was a complete mess. And I'm not saying this is the case in your instance here, Bradley, but I'm just giving you an idea of what was going on. And it was just a complete no-no. Okay. Now, I have seen this quite a few times in my estate agency career where people have gone down the road of a loft conversion and they've done the conversion. But the staircase is one of the biggest issues of getting access into the loft space. And a lot of the times I've seen it, there hasn't been the right fire compartmentation. And from memory, and I'm going from memory here, so I might be incorrect, but from memory, I believe at the time when we were looking at a lot of these staircases that were going up to a second floor, at the time you were having to put fire doors in on the first floor and I believe on the ground floor in order to make the property meet building regulations at that time. So if those sort of things aren't in place, it's well worth getting one or two local builders to come and have a look at it and see what their guidance would be around this issue of fire compartmentation and, you know, whether or not the angle of the staircase actually meets building regs, whether there's enough headway, whether there's enough support for, you know, walking up and down the stairs, all that sort of thing. So a good estate agent, it sounds like, you know, this guy that you've already had round has already highlighted this to you. And sometimes it can be not well taken by homeowners who have put time, effort and money into a loft conversion, think it's going to increase the value of their property massively because they're creating an extra bedroom or they're creating more space. But actually what's happening is that in some instances it can actually have a negative effect on the property value because with respect, Bradley, the work may not have been done to the right standard. And as a consequence, it's almost as expensive to come in and rectify some of that work that's being done rather than actually doing it right from day one. Okay. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine has recently gone down the road of doing a loft conversion on their property. They asked me what my advice would be on that property before they started the work, and that was, I think, 18 months ago. And my advice was, don't do it, just move. You know, you're going to put, I think at the time, the quote was coming in at about 35,000 for this loft conversion. It's down in Southampton. I said, don't do it. Put the money towards your new house, you know, save yourself the hassle because it's not going to be a 5-minute job, right? And last I heard, they were up to about £70,000 in spend because, you know, building materials have gone crazy in price, and, you know, the builders had more work than they can shake a stick at. So they've been off doing different jobs. They've left parts of work unfinished. It's just become a mess. So the quality of the work, even though it's been done by a local builder, hasn't been the best in my humble opinion. That's without seeing it. So without getting sidetracked, I think where you are here, I would definitely invite a couple of builders to have a look at this for you, give you some advice. And the reason why it's so important to do this up front is because if you're thinking about selling the property, which I presume you are because you've invited an estate agent to have a look at it, right? If you are putting the property on the market and you decide not to go down the road of building regs, it's going to come up at some point, whether it's the buyer's solicitor asking for confirmation that the work has been done in accordance with building regs and to ask for a piece of paper that says, yep, this property is certified as complete, or whether it's the mortgage valuation surveyor acting on behalf of the buyer who's going to come around and inspect the property and go, yeah, okay, I want to see some paperwork that substantiates this, you know. So unless you've got a cash buyer who's going to come in and go, yeah, I'll buy the property cash and I don't care what condition it's in, which is unlikely. It's every seller's dream to get that cash buyer who just buys it warts and all, but I can tell you it's unlikely. And unless you're going to throw it into an auction and hope for the best, and then probably not get full market value for it, you know, it sounds to me as though the best route would be forearmed. Being well prepared would be forearmed towards going to the sale of the property by getting a builder to come and have a look at it, going and getting the right documentation in place, or making the amendments that you need to do to the property in order to make it comply, and then you can sell the property. It may well be, and I don't want to tempt fate here, Bradley, but it may well be that your option, after you've spoken to the builders, of course, and they've given you advice once they've seen it, but it may be that you whip out the staircase, board up the hole in the loft, and, you know, it's just there as a storeroom, as an elaborate storeroom. I don't know what other work you've done, but, you know, from my side of things, as I say, this is one of the most common things that I've seen that creates major problems when it comes to sell the property, and it's something you need to be aware of. All right. So hope that helps. The other option, of course, Bradley, would be to go to the local authority and ask them to come out and inspect the local authority building regs inspector. But not only are they likely to want a fee, They're also likely to possibly issue an improvement notice or other consequence for you if the property doesn't meet those requirements. So probably best to get a builder in to check it out before you get going. All right. Hope that helps. Let me know if there's anything else you need. More than happy to give you any further guidance we can on that one, Bradley. All right. Good. Wishing you all the best of luck with that. Okay. Question number 4 coming in from Sahid. Hi there, Sahid. Thanks for the question. So Sahid says, I'm using USwitch to research conveyances, and I'm a bit confused as to what they do when it comes to searches. The list of searches seems to differ quite a bit between the quotes on USwitch. The first option doesn't have drainage and water environment searches, but has chancel search, whilst the second one has the first 2, but not the last one. The estate agent recommended their own guys, but they want £1,000 more than the USwitch people, who are already charging on average $599. And I can't quite figure out what they do differently. A trusted builder friend told me not to use sites like USwitch or the estate agent's recommendation, but to instead look for a local firm who are on my mortgage providers panel. He said the big online companies or the estate agents' firms seem to be the ones who have the worst customer service. What would you advise? Well, okay, that's a great question, Sahid. Thank you for sending that one in. A couple of things I want to say on that. Look, in the current market at the moment, and I've addressed similar questions to this in the past, Sahid. So if you haven't seen that, maybe go back and check some of those previous videos. But one of the things I'm going to say is that where you are right now in the marketplace, a lot of solicitors are struggling to keep up with the demand that's being put upon them by buyers trying to buy properties and sellers trying to get sales through quickly. As a consequence, some of their service standards have slipped, which means that they're extending the timeline in terms of getting deals across the line and getting all that paperwork completed in good time. So really what I'm going to suggest, I can't honestly vouch for or recommend, should I say, budget or low fee conveyances anymore, because I think, frankly, it's inviting more problems than it's worth. And that's from having had a look at a number of conveyancing firms, and I've looked behind the scenes. Okay, so I've seen not only how they're winning business, but how they're conducting themselves and how much profitability they're making at the end of every year. And a lot of those figures don't look good. And I'm not saying this to be disparaging towards conveyancing solicitors at all. That's not what I'm saying. But it comes down to simple economics. And when you understand that, it costs a solicitor's practice a certain amount of, manpower and time and energy for them to complete a conveyancing case. And when they're charging budget fees, there's less money in the pot for them to then, get that work processed as quickly as possible. So if you want it done and you want it done quickly, i.e. inside of 6 to 8 weeks, shall we say, you need to pay that little bit more, because I can guarantee you trying to save £1,000 isn't going to be worth it when you're 26 weeks into a conveyance and you still haven't exchanged contracts. And that's not a guarantee, of course. But the point I'm trying to say to you is that I can introduce you to conveyancing firms who will do that within 6 weeks, but they'll charge you for it, accordingly. But the point is, I'd rather pay that little bit of extra money up front, because we're dealing with tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds, and in some cases millions. I'd rather pay that little bit of extra money up front for that peace of mind that the deal's going to get done quickly, and then I can relax knowing that it's all handled. Do you know what I mean? So that's the way I would look at it. Come to me. I'm happy to recommend a couple of people to you. Shop around if you want to online. Have a chat with some of these people. But I would ask them, what timescales are they working towards? Because some are pricing themselves out of the market. I heard one recently with a friend of mine. They spoke to a local solicitor, and for a basic conveyance on I think it was like a £250,000 property, the solicitor wanted nearly £4,000 to do the work. Okay. And they weren't promising anything to be done in like 2 weeks. It was still probably about 2 to 3 months to get it done. But they just wanted to price themselves out of the market and not take on the work. So, do they actually want the work in the first place? If so, what timescale are they working towards? And thirdly, ask them whether or not they will take any kind of financial hit if they don't deliver on their promises. And I would say that 90% of solicitors won't do that. Because they'll say that a lot of things are outside of their control, which is true. But, I would want somebody who's in this race with me, okay, who's got a bit of skin in the game, and who says, yeah, you know what, this is what I'm promising, this is what I'm going to deliver to you, and if I don't deliver it, I deserve to take a financial hit. Okay, and if you can find solicitors like that, then not only would they be the ones that I would introduce you to because those are the people that we want to work with, then I would suggest to you that they'd be the ones that are worth pursuing because they've got your best interests at heart. If they're prepared to take a financial hit because they haven't done the work in time, then that would suggest to me that they've got a vested interest in being successful. Okay, so hope that helps, Zahid. Best of luck, obviously, in finding the right solicitor for you. And again, anything that we can do, please get in touch, and be glad to try and help you out as much as we can. All right, thanks for your question. All right, moving on. We're rattling through these questions, guys. It's fantastic to be doing this again, and it is getting a bit warm, so you have to forgive me for drinking water as I'm going through. But it's yeah, I'm just having a great time here. Okay, so I've got another question here that's come in from an anonymous person. So whoever you are, hi there. So as a solicitor, how do I speed up transactions and make more money when I'm being told to invest heavily in technology and I can't afford it? Okay, well, nice and short, quick question. Thank you. Okay, so this is something that I'm seeing. So this is coming from the other side of the equation now, as to the previous question. So this is dealing now with, being a solicitor in the game, trying to get transactions done and over the line and make more money, but they're being told that shall we say, the silver bullet, the magic pill to their problems is to invest in technology. And I'm seeing quite a bit of advice floating around from industry experts that are suggesting that's the way that solicitors go. And I think, frankly, speaking very bluntly, that lacks an understanding of what did I say most, of what a lot of conveyancing solicitors are facing in the marketplace. And it comes back to what I was talking about in the previous question, which is a lot of solicitors are selling their service on a commoditized basis, okay, and without moving away from that commoditized service basis, they're going to end up in this perpetual hamster wheel to nowhere, running round and round and round, charging low value fees, getting more and more stressed out because they're piling upon more and more work on their colleagues' heads to try and make a profit in their business. And fundamentally, you have to reach a point, which it sounds to me like you've reached by asking this question. You have to get to a point where you say, hang on a minute, this isn't working. We're not making enough money. Indemnity insurance is going up every year, okay, which it is for a lot of firms. As a consequence, that's squeezing our margins, and then we're being asked to pay out referral fees to referrers to get work in. Well, perhaps we need to do something. And in a lot of cases, the first remedy is to look at the price to service ratio. And what I mean by that is, can you offer exemplary service to your clients for a higher price point? Okay, because at the moment, buyers and sellers are prepared to pay. And I believe that they will continue to be prepared to pay as long as they're receiving value. And a lot of people can't get their heads around this idea of price equating to value. Okay. And here's how I'll dress it up for you. We did a survey, WiggyWam did a survey. This is probably going back about 18 months now. And we found that probably 4 out of 5 of buyers and sellers don't want the cheapest fees, okay? They don't want the cheapest estate agent. They don't want the cheapest solicitor. What they want is the pressure and the stress taken off them, and they want a good job doing for the money that they're paying, okay? When you can sort of sit back, right, and look at your client's journey, and it's really helpful for both estate agents and solicitors. If they've gone through a house move recently, most of them will tell you that it was a bloody nightmare and they'd never do it again. Okay. But you have to look at that journey and go, okay, so why was it a nightmare? Why was it hard work? Why was it stressful? What were the things that went wrong? And then how do I solve those problems for our clients in a way that allows me to add value to their moving journey? And the problem is, for most solicitors and estate agents, they haven't moved in recent years. Okay. They're immune to how difficult it is for the average punter because they're used to dealing with it every day. And I'm saying this with a whole lot of love and respect, but it's the only way to get through to a marketplace that's become immune to the impact it has on people's day-to-day lives when they're trying to move home. Okay. And unless people stand back and go, do you know what? It is a bit of a bloody nightmare. So what are the things that we need to put in place to change this entire journey for people. And if you read, to not blow my own trumpet here, but if you read Home Buyer Secrets, I actually map out the journey for solicitors and estate agents to follow that will help their clients to move home quickly without facing all of the stress and the burdens that they currently face. Okay. And by doing that, you're offering more value, and therefore you can add a premium to your price point. Okay. It's not simply the case of doing the same work and charging more money for it, which is what a lot of people are doing now, because they've realized that actually clients are desperate, they've got nowhere to turn, so they can put a premium on. That's not what we're talking about. It's no point going to a client saying, yeah, it's 26 weeks for you to move house and it's £3,000, for your fee. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is actually taking away the barriers for them to actually get into the home of their dreams or to sell their home. What do they need? What do they need help with? Do they need a seller's pack? Oh, well, seller's packs don't do anything for the marketplace. Well, are you sure? Have you tried them? Have you really used them to full effect? Because I can tell you some of the people that we've worked with where we've supplied sellers packs to them, the solicitors have said they haven't received them, and they've received them 3 times. So what's breaking down in the chain of command within the solicitor's office where they're not getting the information in time, or they're not receiving it at all? Okay, these are the sorts of things that you need to stand back and look at your entire journey, or your customer's entire journey with you, to achieve their objective. What's the goal and objective? What are they trying to achieve? And then what are they prepared to pay for? Because I can guarantee they'll pay a lot more than you think they will, but you've got to add the value. So I think in summary, and again, somebody asked me this on Twitter recently, saying, oh, you're the expert, tell me in 280 characters you get on Twitter or whatever. And they said, you're the expert, tell me in 280 characters, what do I need to do as a solicitor to actually become more profitable in my business? And I'm like, well, first of all, you need to understand sales and marketing. If you don't understand sales and marketing, which again, a lot of solicitors don't, and I'm not having a go at solicitors here, I'm really not, so don't come at me with that. But a lot of solicitors have never studied sales and marketing. They never understand how to overcome client objections. They never understand how to package their service in a way that looks attractive to the client, so that it's a complete no-brainer to do that. And until you can get to that point, you're going to be competing in the red ocean, which is the shark-infested waters of continual price cuts until it's a complete bloodbath and nobody earns any money. Okay, so you've got to either master sales and marketing, and get yourself into a market of one, or you've got to joint venture with somebody who will do that for you. Okay, and that doesn't mean to say give away the ranch, but it does mean to say you've got to at least reach out to people like me, like others in the industry, who are willing to work with you and your solicitor's practice or your estate agency practice to ultimately help you make more money. And that's exactly what we're about, and that's exactly what we're bringing to the marketplace. And I've got some really exciting innovations that I'm going to be sharing with you very soon. Once we get back from India, I'm feverishly working away, believe it or not. These weird time zones are making my sleep patterns very unpredictable, but I'm working away feverishly to bring something very unique to the marketplace that I think is going to blow a lot of people out of the water and be like, wow, how can you realistically do this? We can do it because we've ironed out a lot of the problems in the process. Okay, and by working with us, it's going to be to your advantage. Okay, so I hope that helps. Thanks for the question, Anonymous, whoever you are, and let me know if you need anything else, and I'll be more than happy to help you out there as well. Okay, and finally here, questions coming from Deborah. Let me just grab a quick glass of water, guys. Okay, so Deborah's asking, is it normal for our solicitor to be the same as the seller's solicitor? It was the seller's estate agent who recommended them to us. They are on the same block as the selling agent. Although it's the same office, the lady handing us is different to the one handling the seller side. Is this legal? As someone suggested, there may be a conflict of interest, and that our mortgage people may not be happy with this arrangement. We were told by the agent that this is normal practice and that it will make the sale go through faster. So far, 2 weeks in, it's all been okay, but just a little concerned. Are you able to clarify? All right, Deborah, well, thanks for that question. Great that you've raised it, and this is an interesting one because people do suspect conflicts of interest sometimes between the same solicitor's practice acting for both the buyer and the seller. And as far as I'm concerned, there should be what's called a Chinese wall within the solicitor's practice. And that means that the individual solicitors acting for the seller and the buyer should not be communicating directly, as in, how do I put it? There has to be a certain level of client respect, shall we say, about what they communicate to one another within the office. They can't just meet at the water cooler and start saying, oh, well, Joe blogs from so-and-so property. Well, this has come up and, oh, blimey, it's going to be a bit of a problem. There should be a certain level of respect, I think, for the client's particular details. So it can help to fast track deals. And I do recommend that, if a buyer is looking to progress a sale very quickly with the seller, one of the things that they can do is offer to pay the seller solicitor's fees as long as they use an approved solicitor. And sometimes that can be within the same legal practice as the one that they're using, or sometimes it can be an outside firm. So, I can't see there being any major problems here, Deborah, but I would just go along with it, see where you go. If things are moving quickly, you've 2 weeks in, there's no major problems, then obviously, yeah, keep going, I would say, particularly at this moment in time. You don't really want to be changing horses at this stage. And again, if the solicitors haven't raised any issues about it, or they haven't declined to act, which is sometimes what they would do if there was a conflict of interest, as a professional person, if there was a conflict of interest, they should decline to act on your behalf. So if they haven't come up with any red flags and said, actually, it's a problem, we can't act for you, then I would suggest that, all seems to be okay. Might be worth a phone call to them to check whether or not there is any conflict of interest. But, unless they've declared it, which they should have done right at the very start, then, yeah, should be all okay to go through. So wishing you the best of luck with that, Deborah. I hope it all goes well, and hopefully it gets fast-tracked through and it can be done as quickly as possible. So thanks for the question there. Anything else that we can do to help you, then let me know. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. End of another webinar. I apologize if I've spoken a bit quickly. I've drunk quite a bit of coffee today to try and keep myself awake whilst we've been doing this different work in different time zones, and all the travel experience we've been doing as well, which has been pretty full on. So as I say, I've got loads going on in the background at the moment. I'm super excited to bring all of this to you, because I think we're going to shake up the market quite a bit, and we're going to ruffle a few feathers as we're going along. So that's always pretty exciting. But I think the way things are going at the moment in the economy, and interestingly, my the sort of in-laws are asking me this question: what's happening in the economy in England? What's happening with Rishi and all the rest of it? And I do see some potentially darker times ahead. I do see a big change in the property market coming. That's just my own view. Not trying to scare anybody here. I understand that there's a lot of different opinions out there at the moment with interest rates and what's happening with mortgage prices and all the rest of it. But from my side, I still think there's a lot of problems that weren't worked out from 2008. And what has happened over the course of the last sort of 14 years is that they've inflated the asset values on their bank books to try and get themselves out of a big nasty hole. But I'm still convinced that a lot of problems haven't been dealt with, which will probably start to come to light over the course of the next 12 months. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting ride. But I definitely think now, well, actually 6 months ago was the time, but now is definitely the time for any estate agents or solicitors or surveyors or letting agents or anybody who's involved in the property market. Now is the time to really start to change your game as far as how you go about marketing and selling your services, and how you go about marketing and disposing of properties for clients, because the changes that are coming, I think it's going to reward those who play the longer term game. Okay, so the whole listed on the internet portals and sell it or let it quickly is going to change drastically to it could potentially take 6 months to sell a property. And what do you do in that period of time? How do you then keep your business, the doors to your business open when you've had 18 months of delayed fees coming through your pipeline because of delayed transaction times and all the rest of it? It's playing the long game now, which is going to win. And it's only those that are embracing a lot of the things that I talk about in Estate Agent Secrets that are going to win the agency game in the future and the professional services game in the future for property professionals. So there's a lot going on, a lot of which we're trying to solve a lot of those problems for people. So it's going to be very encouraging to work with a lot of you guys in the future going forward. I'd encourage you to reach out to me if you're interested in getting ahead of the pack, because there will be a tsunami when everything starts to be released. There will be a tsunami of people coming in and saying, we need to work with you. And then it'll be too late, because can't work with everybody. We can only work with a limited number of people or a limited number of businesses to give them the level of standard of service that we want to. So I will encourage you to reach out to me before then. But certainly from our side, any members of the public who are watching this, anybody who's got any property questions at all, whatever they're related to, please send them in to us. You can send those in to our website, which is wiggywam.co.uk, or you can send them in via our email address, which is happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. That's happytohelp@wiggywam.co.uk. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter, which is at @wiggywam_UK. Okay, and we'd be delighted to take all of your questions. We'd be delighted to deal with them. I'm going to be around here in India for the next week as well. And it's a bit touch and go as to whether or not we'll be back from our travels in time for next Wednesday's webinar. So I'll keep you guys posted as to whether or not that's going to go ahead or not. I'm hoping it will be, and it'll be after we've had what I think will be an enlightening experience at the top of a mountain, which will be pretty awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, let's see how we get on. And if I can make it, great. We'll do another webinar next week. If I can't, we'll bump it to the Thursday and we'll run it then as well. So great to spend some time with you guys. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. As always, as I say, any questions that you've got, send those in via the usual channels. And I'll look forward to seeing you all very soon on another episode. All right, you take care, guys. Thanks for joining me. Bye.